I'm wearing my JoJo Siwa vest today.
I see that. I see that.
It's almost unwearable now because of all the content that she's been putting out wearing this style of vest. Like, it's almost like I can't.
I know. It's unfortunate for you because it's cool,
I
but
know.
something's gone awry.
Welcome to the Feelings Check-In, a feelings first look at the news of the week.
Takes no one asked for on topics everyone's talking about. I'm Natasha Hoskins.
I'm Dina Burke.
And this is Boys Club.
Wait, is it just Boys Club?
It's just Boys Club.
The Boys Club podcast?
No. Just Boys Club.
Here we are.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing it.
Just in a
Doing
phone
it.
booth.
I know, I live here now. Welcome to Boys Club. This is a podcast where we talk about the tech news from the week and then we talk about our feelings. It's a good time most of the time. This one's a little bit serious. The feelings are a little bit serious and we
Do our best.
do our best. So what do we talk about, Dina?
So we're going to talk about the Scarlett Johansson OpenAI feud that is happening at the moment.
Sama versus Scarjo.
Sam versus Scarjo. Yeah, just the larger conversation around creatives and their likeness being used, and touch on some other AI news that hit this week as well. And then we're going to talk about feelings surrounding, I hate to say it, but being a woman. So...
Couldn't hate saying it more, but here we are.
Here we are. And
being a woman in bad behavior.
Being a woman in bad behavior, yeah. And that is the podcast today. We are your hosts. My name is Dina, and that is Natasha. We are the co-founders of Boys Club. How much?
I love it. Keep going. Go off. Go off.
So stick around.
Tech news.
Tech news. I'm excited. I actually have a lot to share.
Great.
Today. There's a lot of bits, mostly revolving around Scarlett Johansson.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't be more excited to hear about it.
So last week we saw the OpenAI demo of the very impressive but also aggressively flirty voice personal assistant, AI personal assistant GPT-4o.
We talked about it on the previous podcast. If you're lost, go check out that episode.
Yes, last week's episode. I said 40 and then someone was like, it's 4.0. So
that's embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing. GPT-4o. So OpenAI did that last week. Big shebang. Lots of chat about it. People were really
fanfare,
blown away. Like, it was one of those moments where you were like, oh wow, it was one of those kind of like magical tech moments where you're like, I can't believe they did this. But they unfortunately lost the news cycle the very next day, basically.
moments later,
Scarlett Johansson, she released a statement and was basically like, hey Sam, not cool. A little bit of context. There's a movie, Her. We also talked about this last week. Her is a film that's released about 10 years ago, Spike Jonze, a dystopian film. But basically there's a character, Scarlett Johansson's in that movie. She plays a voice AI thing. Companion. And it turns romantic and then it turns very dark at the end. But there's this movie and it's her and Scarlett's voice.
It's her and it's her.
It's her all the way down. And in her statement, Scarlett Johansson's basically like, hey, OpenAI reached out to me about 9 months ago to be the voice actor of their new AI personal assistant, which was called Sky. So I'm going to use that word, Sky. That's the name of the voice model that they've named it. And she was like, we negotiated a bit. And then ultimately I was like, no, this isn't right. And then in her statement, she was also like, and then 2 days before the demo, I was also contacted again by Sam and the OpenAI team. And they were like, you should reconsider. And she was like, I'm good. She didn't want to do it.
In her statement, one of the things she said is friends, family, people writing me saying, oh, this is your voice. Like, Sky's voice is so similar to Scarjo's that she was like, the fact that my closest friends and family can't decipher whether it was me or somebody else speaks to essentially them training it on her voice.
Eerily similar is what she said. So she releases this statement and the internet goes crazy. And I would say that the sort of context for her, like as an actress, releasing this statement at that time was like, there's a lot of conversation around likeness and SAG-AFTRA and actors feeling like really scared about their work and their likeness, their visual person being used in these AI models and basically like rendering them
without their consent and also without compensation.
Right.
And then also Sam Altman sent a tweet the day that they went live that said her.
I can't help but feel like he regrets sending that tweet.
That was a stupid fucking thing to do.
He has said in the past that it's his favorite movie. So I think he was proud, and he was like, hey, I created something that's like really similar to my favorite movie. And anyway, I do believe that he regrets sending that tweet because they pulled the voice, and they're basically like, we don't want to offend her. We didn't train it on her voice, but we don't want to be enemies here. So she is famously litigious. She sued Disney around the Black Widow stuff. So OpenAI have said like, this wasn't an imitation of Scarlett Johansson, but we're sorry and we're going to pull it.
Did they apologize, or it was like a...
They apologized. Yeah, it was an apology.
Okay.
It was a Notes app apology. And so my point of view on this story is that two things can be true at the same time. I think that questions of likeness and usage are going to become more important. There's going to need to be more disclosure and transparency around that. Like, absolutely. And I feel for creative people, especially, who feel like their work is being eroded. And I think that that's going to be a bigger and bigger conversation. I think more transparency, not less, is what's needed. And I don't see that exactly coming from the OpenAI team. I think related to that, another big piece of news this week was that Suno, which is an AI music startup, raised $125 million. So Suno can basically generate voice, lyrics, and instruments together, like in a track. And they're basically like, you can put in a prompt, a text prompt, and generate music. And 50% of my household income comes from the craft of music production. So that's like pretty scary to think about that future. And a lot of people in that conversation were like, you know, the Meryl Streep yelling meme.
Yeah.
They're like, ask what you trained it on. Like, what did you train your models on? And because the answer to that is obviously like all of recorded music and people's whole life work in their catalogs. And so that was there this week as well. And it's like a lot of money is being put towards the technology and infrastructure around it and the conversation around the creators and the artists. OpenAI kind of just like brushing past it. Yeah. Felt not great. But I listened to the voice and I'm kind of just like, it's kind of a white woman Pilates voice. Like it does.
It's a solid core voice.
It's a solid core voice. It does sound a lot like Scarlett Johansson, but it's not her. There was another voice actress. And I can imagine if you're that voice actress, you're like, well, no, it wasn't Scarlett Johansson's voice.
She's like, excuse me.
Yeah, exactly.
This is my craft.
And so I think that they got it close to Scarlett Johansson, but I don't think they trained it on her voice. I think that they did use another voice actress and it sounds similar, but it's not the same. And I also think like it's a little bit generic white woman. And so much so that there's this YouTube video that I want to play for you, which is Scarlett Johansson's statement on OpenAI's illegal use of her voice read by the Sky AI voice. So I want you to hear this because I think it'll be revealing.
He told me that he felt that by my voicing the system, I could bridge the gap between tech companies and creatives and help consumers to feel comfortable.
So that's her statement.
I mean, it does sound like her.
It does. It does sound like her. One of the top comments is, to be honest, I thought Sky sounded more like Rashida Jones, which when you hear that, you're like, yeah, she actually does sound like Rashida Jones.
You know, there's like these tricks of the ear where it's like, if you're reading something, there's like two ways that you could hear it depending on what you're looking at. And it's incredible because when you do it, it is actually true. It could say like, well, why would you do that? But then it could also say, go eat a banana or something. And if whichever one you're reading is what you hear. And I think that's sort of what's happening here is I don't know that I would immediately think ScarJo, but thinking about her, I hear it, of course. And then if you think about somebody else, you hear them. And so I don't know. It's a tough situation because as you're saying, it's a much broader conversation around IP and people's livelihoods and a creative expression and practice. And this idea that all of that is going to be eroded and removed and wiped away from the world because you have these massive conglomerates that are going to exist where they've eaten up all of this data and information, and it just becomes a less creative world. If people aren't compensated properly to be creative, then that's just going to disappear in the world.
Yeah.
So I applaud her for trying to set a precedent around the things that are her value.
I also could see a world where it's like, if the bag was appropriately sized, why would
she would have been down?
Yeah. And that's not like eroding her work necessarily. That is her being compensated. That's what the SAG-AFTRA sort of conversation is all
agreement
about. It's about
yeah.
it's about fair compensation. So it's like she's compensated fairly, then I think it's fine. But
But I also think she would have gotten a lot of heat. A lot of heat. Optically,
Perhaps.
it would have been tough for her. So even if she was, even
Perhaps.
if the offer was great.
But I will say that like Meta has their AI little characters, and Kendall Jenner voiced one. Like they got a bunch of celebrities to voice some of their
Oh, really?
characters, but I don't think it's as big of a deal as the OpenAI one.
Also, I think it comes down to the tweet.
The her tweet.
Yeah. I think it comes down to the her tweet. I think it also speaks to just public sentiment around
Yes.
Sam.
Declining.
The tide has turned.
The tide has turned against Sam Altman, I fear.
I fear as well. I don't think that he's everybody's guy next door anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people are looking for evidence to make him like an evil, maniacal tech. I know he's not a billionaire, but he might as well be. And
Oh, I
this
think
was-
I think it might be at this point.
you think so? I thought he was like half a billion.
Yeah, I fear his public opinion has shifted. Boys Club ran a very formal poll earlier this week about people's level of trust.
What'd they say? Let's read the receipts. Let's read the results.
Yeah, so we ran a poll. What's your level of trust in Sam Altman? 46%, zero, zilch, nil, nix, nada.
Whoa.
32% mid low, 14% mid high, and 7% I'm all in LFG.
Oh my God.
So people, I mean,
who's all in? Who would be all in?
I don't know who's all in on Sam.
Unwell. Like it's time to get some therapy going. BetterHelp, sponsor us.
Yeah, and I think that there's a few things contributing to that. I think the news cycle getting away from them on this launch and the Scarlett Johansson of it all didn't help. There was also the safety team, this super alignment team at OpenAI, basically all of them resigning last week amidst all of this that was happening didn't bode well. There was also another scandal that's been going around about equity packages and employees getting their equity packages pulled. The information is a great article about that. I'll link that in the show notes. And I think just like, man, not great.
Not great.
For Sam and co. I also want to say that AI generally, so there was the Humane sale news that hit this week as
Wait,
well.
I didn't hear this. What's that?
Remember Humane, the little
Yeah,
AI
the AI
pin?
pin.
Yeah. So it's this AI pin that it's like a little AI companion. It's a pin. It like projects onto your hand, information onto your hand. They started shipping their product last month, April, and it went not great. There was a lot of bad
Reviews.
press around it. Yeah, and reviews. There was this one reviewer in particular. His name was Marcus Brownlee, and he is this huge YouTuber, and he was like, "This is the worst product I've ever reviewed." And they are in the market to sell it.
Oh, they're shopping it around?
They're shopping it around, and they want
Wow.
to sell it for between $750 million and $1 billion. They raised
Okay.
$230 million from investors, like Sam Altman was one of their investors. And yeah, the launch was a flop. What comes up for me in the news around this, I'm like, man, they only had one shot on goal that they were like, that was in their forecast. They're like, we're going to try this one launch, and if it doesn't go well, then
Crazy.
it's insane.
I know. That feels like a fail fast, I guess. Fail fast and
gamble.
upward.
Yeah,
Big
fail
gamble.
fast. You're right. And then the other bit of AI news that I want to share is that Meta announced their new AI board, all white men.
Oh, beautiful.
Dominic Midori Davis.
I honestly cannot believe we're still doing that.
I know it's on one
shocking.
hand so it's so shocking, and then on the other hand, you're like not shocking at all.
I know, but like, grow up.
I know. Especially all the conversation around AI safety disproportionately affecting women and marginalized communities and people of color. Like that's the whole conversation around it, and that they couldn't have the
Cabeza.
cabeza. Going on the cabeza.
Well, it's actually cabezo in this scenario.
There's a link in show notes. Dominic Midori Davis has a really great piece on it, and she writes for TechCrunch, so you should check that out. And that's about it for the AI news of the week. What do you think?
Wow, great stuff. Lots going on. I will also say there's a lot going on in crypto. We're covering it all next week, so don't fear. But great stuff. Thank you for filling me in. I feel briefed.
Anytime.